So today I want to talk about something called gear acquisition syndrome, or for short, GAS. I've got more music production hardware than I could have ever imagined having as a kid, and it feels like it all happened so quick. I got into this cycle of buying and selling and buying and selling, and every time I would go to buy something or rebuy something, I would sneak in another little purchase, and before you know it, all the gear started stacking up. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that if you're somebody that just likes hardware or likes collecting gear. But for me, it became a problem. And I need to make a conscious effort to stop buying hardware because I'm not fully utilizing it. It just feels like I'm jumping from one shiny object to the next. And I always end up circling back around to the same couple pieces of gear. And that's what I need to double down on and stick with. I mean, I think there's a million factors that contributed into how or why I got into this loop of buying and selling and buying and selling. I definitely fell victim to marketing, fell victim to influencers. The amount of time that I have to think about music versus the amount of time I have to actually make music when it comes to beats is skewed. I think for a lot of us as we get older, we have more and more responsibilities, so we have less and less time to just kind of do whatever we want. So we have more access to money than we do time usually. So, you could just hop on the internet, buy this new piece of gear that's going to solve all your problems. And then you never actually get to use it to its full potential or really learn it. You get it and then you invest some time into learning it and it doesn't do what you thought it was going to do. And then you sell it and you buy the next thing. I personally like making music on hardware and I totally understand the qualitative benefits of doing so. But I think it's a little foolish if we don't acknowledge that with even a mid-tier computer nowadays, you can do what most of these groove boxes and pieces of hardware do, plus some. And at the end of the day, if we're going to end up in a DAW anyway, it just feels like we're complicating the process, at least for me. It kind of does my head in. Like, I enjoy the restrictions and I get inspired when I'm working on a box like the MPC or the Digitact. But if I have to end up in a DAW at some point, if I hit a wall, I'm like, I should have just started this in the DAW. I think that's a common feeling. Maybe some people handle it better than I do. Maybe I'm just procrastinating or getting in my own way with that. But for me, that's been my biggest challenge with using these boxes. Finishing music. That's ultimately my goal, is I want to enjoy the process, but I want to finish songs. So I'm going to keep the Digitact 2 and my MPC. And what really does my head in sometimes is there's a lot of overlap between the features. And on paper, the MPC does most, if not all, of what the Digitact does. And it can do a lot of those things better. But it just feels different. And I think that's kind of the trap that we end up falling into. On paper, one thing makes sense, but it's just that feeling and that inspiration that you get from using different pieces of hardware that bring out different pieces of creativity. To save my sanity and my wallet, because I can't really afford it, I'm just mastering those two things and I'm sticking with them for a long time. Except for this. So I meant what I said. I'm done with buying gear for now, just because I have all I need. And really, I always come back to the MPC. The Digitact is fun, but the MPC is just like the first piece of equipment that I played on that made making music make sense to me. I mean, in the past, I downloaded FL Studio and I downloaded Ableton and I just couldn't figure it out. And then I sat with my boy Math, who's a producer, and he showed me how to use the MPC and I was able to grasp the concepts of it. It just clicked with my brain. Some pieces of gear just work better with different ways of thinking, and the MPC has just been one of those things. Now, don't get me wrong, it's been fun going and trying new samplers and new equipment, but at the end of the day, I think I'm always going to come back to the MPC. I like the workflow. I didn't find it cumbersome or hard to learn. I know a lot of people online say that it's difficult to learn, but there's still a lot that I don't know in this machine that I can explore, but if I keep buying new samplers and new things that I need to learn, I'm never going to get to the level of proficiency that I want to get to on this particular device. Now, Going back to buying new gear, I have an MPC Live 2. The Live 2 for me, it just didn't work for my workflow. I still have it. I'm about to sell it, and that's the last device that I'm going to buy or sell over the course of the next year. I just didn't get use out of it. Like, as far as like being out and about using the battery or the built-in speakers, that was kind of lost on me. And with the X, what I really love about it is the Q links. You have all of these screens here and you can see all the parameters, and that's the only gripe I really had about the MPC Live is like I prefer to have more physical buttons, and the Live has way less buttons, and then you have the virtual Q links, so you only have one set of Q links and then you have to cycle through them. It just made more sense to sell that and then get an MPC X. And luckily, I was able to get this for like the same price as what a Live 2 can sell for. So it's almost a wash, the way that I'm looking at it. And if I'm not going to move it out of my studio, I might as well use it in controller mode. And then I'm already in a DAW. I have access to my VSTs. I can do as much as I want in the MPC software. And if I ever get to a stopping point, I can bounce it out, move it over to Ableton, and call it a day, and just put the final touches on it. Everybody has a different workflow, and if the Live 2 works for you, it works for you. But for me, getting the X was a good move. Now, I've had an Ableton push. I had the push 2 and the push 3, and that didn't offer the same level of control as the MPC X does in the integration with the software, because the software is more or less an afterthought with the MPC. With the push, the hardware is the afterthought. So yeah, it integrates really well with Ableton, but I found a lot of stuff that you'd have to do on the controller was more difficult to do than if I just had the keyboard and mouse. Whereas with the MPC, I feel like the keyboard and mouse is more complicated to work with than just working with the hardware. So that's kind of my thinking on that. Feel free to leave your opinions in the comments. So when it comes to making beats, like, I'm not going to be the guy to sit here on camera and make something from scratch for you guys. Maybe someday I will be, but right now it's just a learning process for me, and I'm just trying to have fun. I'll just show you guys what I've done so far.